Good day everyone. Before I start, I would like to introduce myself first. By the way, my name is Jennifer Rose B. Mundoyo, a second year student BS in Criminology. Natural law. The term natural law refers to a law that is ingrained in nature and accessible through reason. As a result, according to the natural law philosophers, certain values or rights are ingrained in human nature. By definition, natural law is undoubtedly intended to be applicable everywhere. And the natural law must act as human foundation of all use. Natural law refers to some kind of intuition that a person has, one which is so apparently true to him that it is unquestioned. Natural law used to try to justify a certain way of behaving by seeing its likeness somewhere in the natural world. Natural law used as an appeal to something instinctual without it being directly by reason. Natural law used to refer to what seems common to them given their particular environment. In overall, natural law theory, a theory which will provide us a unique way of determining the moral status of our actions. That's all. Thank you.
So good day everyone. I am Charlotte Rojas and my topic for this day is all about Thomas Aquinas. In this week we will explore how Thomas Aquinas provide this. The understanding of human nature anchored in our capacity for reason will become the basis of natural law theory, a theory which will provide us a unique way of determining the moral status of our action. So, who is Thomas Aquinas? Thomas Aquinas was a medieval thinker that was born on January 28, 1225, and died March 7, 1274. Thomas Aquinas was one of the various thinkers throughout the history that could be said to present a natural law theory. When we talk about natural law theory, it is a theory in ethics and philosophy that says that human beings possess intrinsic values that govern their reasoning and behavior. Natural law maintains that these rules of right and wrong are inherent in people and are not created by society or court judges. The master principle of natural law, wrote Aquinas, was that good is to be done and pursued, and evil is to be avoided. Aquinas stated that reason reveals particular natural laws that are good for humans, such as self-preservation, marriage and family, and the desire to know God. It has to be recognized that this natural law theory is part of a larger discussion, which is moral theory taken as a whole. Moral theory, according to Aquinas, is all human actions are governed by a general principle or precept that is foundational to and necessary for all practical reasoning. Good is to be done and evil is to be avoided. This principle is not something we can ignore or defy. A moral theory consists of more or less connected claims arranged to determine what a morally good or right action or stance is, and what it is that make is either right or good. Thomas Aquinas believed that for the knowledge of any truth whatsoever, man needs divine help, that the intellect may be moved by God to its act. However, he believed that human beings have the natural capacity to know many things without special divine revelation, even though such revelation appears from time to time. That would be all. Thank you.
Good day everyone. Before I start, I would like to introduce myself first. By the way, my name is Jennifer Rose B. Mundoyo, a second year student BS in Criminology. The context of Christian story. The central truth upheld and explained by Aquinas in all his works is the promise at the center of the Christian faith that Aquinas said, we are all created by God in order to ultimately return to Him. The structure of his magnum opus, Summa Theology, follows the trajectory of this story.
This book, Summa Theologiae, was divided into three parts. The first part deals primarily with God and comprises discussions of questions concerning the existence and nature of God. The second part deals with the man or the dynamic of human life. This is characterized our pursuit of happiness, which we should realize rests ultimately not on any particular good thing that is created by God, but in the highest good, which is God Himself. The third part deals with Christ and comprises discussions of questions concerning the Incarnation, the sacraments, and the resurrection. The Summa Theologica, the main work of St. Thomas Aquinas, is organized into three sections, and it aims to instruct the both newbies and specialists in all the aspects of Christian truth. It addresses issues that are crucial to Christian ethics, law, and the life of Christ, while giving philosophical and theological responses to popular objections and concerns about the Christian faith. The Roman Catholic Church's contemporary beliefs currently uphold the opinion expressed in this body of work in a substantial part. A strong Aristotelian and Augustinian influence can be seen in Theologica's interesting allusions to an insight into ensoulment and embryology, as well as other issues.
Good day to each and everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the context of Aquinas' ethics. But first, who is Aquinas? Thomas Aquinas was the greatest of the scholastic philosophers. He produced a comprehensive synthesis of Christian theology and Aristotelian philosophy that influenced Roman Catholic. He is of the 21st century and was adopted as the official philosophy of the Church in 1917. So, the context of Aquinas' ethics. A full consideration of Aquinas' ethics would require us to explore his discussion of how we develop either good or bad habits with a good disposition leading us toward making moral choices, thereby contributing to our moral virtue, and a bad disposition inclining us toward making immoral choices or bringing us to vice. So in Aquinas' ethic, it requires us to explore his discussion of how we develop either good or bad habits that could lead us into immoral virtue or moral virtue. The Christian's life the Christian's life, therefore, is about developing the capacities as by God into disposition of virtue inclined toward the good. So not just the Christian, but all religion inclined toward the good talaga. It bears to hear that the disposition of virtue inclined toward the bad, toward the good talaga. And lastly, he also put forward that there is within us a conscience that directs our moral thinking. We need a basis for our conscience to be properly informed, and we need a clear guidance of whether certain decision we make lead us toward a virtue and why. So he also said that within us, our conscience that directs our moral thinking, that it needs to be well developed and informed, and it need a clear vision so we certain have a best decision that we make in our life. It is either immoral or moral virtue. And that's all. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Lena Don, and I will continue the context of Aquinas' ethics. Thus, there is a need for a clear basis of ethics, a ground that will more concretely direct our sense of what is right and wrong. For Aquinas, that would be the natural law. We can recall the divine command theory urges a person toward unthinking obedience to religious precepts. We can contrast how the moral theory of Aquinas requires the judicious wise use of reason. In doing so, one's sense of right and wrong would be grounded on something stable, human nature itself. We will start by exploring how Aquinas restates the Christian message, making use of a philosophical vocabulary appropriated from the ancient Greeks. From there, we will be able to explore the precept of natural law. The Elements provides account of Thomas Aquinas' moral philosophy that emphasizes the intrinsic connection between happiness and human good, human virtue, and precept of practical reason. Human being nature have an end to which they are directed and concerning which they do not deliberate, namely happiness. Humans achieve this end by performing good human acts, which are produced by an intellectual and will, and perfected by the relevant virtues. These virtues acts requires the agent grasps the relevant moral principles and uses them in particular cases. So, ang ethics ay kailangan na mas malinaw na basihan sa pagpapatibay sa pananaw kung ano ang tama o mali. Pero kay Aquinas, ito ay ang natural law. So, upang maintindihan ng mabuti ang natural law, kailangan nating unawain kung paano muling isinaasaad ni Aquinas ang Christian message. So,
Hello, my name is Junior A. Lopez Jr. Now let's talk about the Greek heritage Neoplatonic good. God creates. This does not only mean that He brings about beings, but He also cares for, and thus governs, the activity of the universe and of every creature. This central belief of the Christian faith has been stated in the work of ancient Greek philosopher Plato, which had been put forward 1,000 years before Aquinas. In Plato's philosophy, God is transcendent, which means the highest and most perfect being, and one who uses eternal forms, or archetypes, to fashion a universe that is eternal and uncreated. Plato was credited for giving the subsequent history of philosophy in one of the most compelling and enduring ideas, the notion of supreme and absolutely transcendent good. Plato is one of the world's best known and most widely read and studied philosophers. He was the student of Socrates and the teacher of Aristotle, and he wrote in the middle of the 4th century BCE in ancient Greece. In Plato's work, The Republic, it is often supposed that he is trying to envision the ideal society, but the more fundamental concern that animates from the text is to provide an objective basis and standard from striving to be moral. It can be said that Plato was trying to answer questions such as, why should I bother trying to be good? And why cannot be good be just whatever I say it is? Socrates answered that the good is real and not something that one can pretend to make up or ignore. Neoplatonic philosophy is a strict form of principle monism that strive to understand everything on the basis of a single causes that they consider divine and indiscriminately referred to as the first, the one, or the good. Thank you.
Good day everyone, this is Nur Yassin M. Muhammad and I'm here to discuss about this Socrates discussed this elevating the notion of the good to unprecedented heights. The idea of good excerpts from the Republic, Plato. Now, that which imparts the truth to the known and the power of knowing to the knower is what I would. You have termed the idea of good, and this you will deem to be the cause of science and truth insofar as the latter becomes a subject of knowledge. Beautiful too, as were both truth and knowledge. You will be right on instance. Light and sight may be truly said be like the sun, and yet not to be the sun. So in this other sphere, science and truth may be deemed to be like the goof, but not the good. The good has a place of honor yet higher. You would say, would you not, that the sun is not the author of visibility in all visible things, but of generations and nourishments and growth through himself is not generation. In like manner, the good may be said to be not only the author of knowledge to all things known, but of their being and essence, and yet the good is not essence but far exceeds essence in dignity and power. Plato believes that conflicting interests with society can be reconciled. He proposes a best rational and righteous political order that leads to a harmonious unity of society and allows each of its parts to flourish but not at the expense of others. Readers of the Republic have long been baffled by this passage and are still trying to figure out how exactly to interpret it rather than dismiss. This idea of goodwill become a source of fascination and inspiration to later thinkers even to this day. Thank you.
A pleasant day. I'm going to discuss Neoplatonists. Neoplatonists are the scholars who are clarifying and elaborating on what Plato had already written. An example of work by Plato is the Republic. It is the most famous work that featured to a wise society by philosophers. Neoplatonism was founded by Plotinus. And Neoplatonism was the last school of Greek philosophy. In the hands of Neoplatonists, Plato's idea of good, which is the source of all beings, become identified with the one and beautiful. So, what is the one? The one is beyond all the categories of being and non-being. So, the one is not a thing, a person, or the collection anything, and also not a conscious or self-aware. But the one is the first principle, excellence in itself, and only thing that can exist for all else in the universe. So, the intellect is the first deduction from the one. So, every object we can see around has a lower value than its the ideal equivalent in the words of forms. So, identifying ugliness with the evil and the beauty with the good or the one. So, aesthetics is a not different field from the aesthetics because beauty is always a moral quality. So, being a part of forms that live in the intellect, which are in an or of themselves, a reflection of the good makes something beautiful. This is the ultimate reality, which is the oneness that will give rise to the multiplicity of everything else in the cosmos. All beings have the single goal, which is to return that unity.
The good in the one expert from the Aeneid's Plotinus. Plotinus is considered to be the founder of Neoplatonism from the year 205 to 270 CE, or Common Era. If you read the statement inside the box, you won't really understand much because there are some words that we are not familiar with. So through Neoplatonists like Plotinus, the Platonic idea of the good would continue well into the Christian Middle Age, inspiring later thinkers in allowing it to be taught anew in a more personal way as creating and loving God. So in this statement, the Platonic of the good would continue hantod sa Christian Middle Age, hantod sa mga incoming new generation. Silbi kining statement ni Plotinus sa taas, nagsilbing inspiring tools para makabuhat og maayo sa isig katao ug sa atong sarili. So kini siya ang magsilbing requirements nato ang pagbuhat og maayo para maduol ta sa Ginoo. So our topic is natural law. So by doing good is natural na nagaganap sa isang tao or sa isang society. Pero ang paggawa ng mali ay natural pa rin, pero Hindi ito kaaya-aya sa mata ng sa isang society o sa isang komunidad, lalo na sa mata ng Panginoon.